Hey, welcome to the show, everybody. Welcome to the show. My name is Scott. I'm the proprietor of the Future Comfort Channel. Today is episode 490. We're talking America on the March and Russia comes around. Joe, I'd love to say to the chat that it's all my fault that we're late, but I think that all three of us share responsibility.
Oh, really? I think
in
it's
this.
mostly my fault, but
Joe, I'm trying to be gracious and not call out Watcher, and you and
no,
I.
it's all right. No. I'm falling right on that sword. That was me.
Yeah, Watcher was missing in action for a while this morning, but we were nerding out about something new. And we might as well just talk about it right now, right? Or do you want to wait? So,
well, you go ahead.
Yeah, the good folks at Shield Arms have made some their magazine extensions. Right now, you can get these pre-installed. This is for the Glock 19. They have them for the 17, the 26, and the 43. You can buy these pre-installed +5 rounders for $50 for a magazine. They also make them for AR mags for $40 pre-installed, a +5. So take your PMag 30 rounder to 35 rounds. Pretty cool. I don't have any of those yet because I already struggle with how heavy some of my equipment is. But anyway, you can buy these. It's got the little Shield Arms logo right there on the end, and they're really cool. They don't really extend the length of the magazine too much. Shield Arms logo right there. Good partners at Shield Arms, great folks. Hosting Shield Field Days here, July 25th through the 27th. They come in several different colors. Now, CWFC, I see you asking about Rhodesian Brushstroke. No, the magazines don't, but you can buy them in olive green. And a proceed of the olive green ones, this is Flat Dark Earth, but if you buy the olive green ones, a proceed goes to the SOF Foundation, which benefits Green Beret families. But they do sell an SA-15 folding stock rifle called the Spirit of Rhodesia, and it is in Rhodesian Brushstroke. So pretty cool stuff. These extendos, as Rowan calls them, aren't really that bad. They don't make them that much bigger. Great little thing. Good folks over there. So check it out. ShieldArms.com.
Yeah, Shield Arms. Those guys are, they've been good friends to the channel, good friends to all of us. So anything we can do to push a little business their way, we would be happy for you guys to check them out. Watcher, I hope your back's feeling better.
I appreciate that. Better, but not fixed yet. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
I have more range of motion.
You're on the mend. You're on the mend, right?
Yeah. I have more range of motion. I'm just constantly reminded by my back that if I step out of line even a little bit, it's back to square one. So,
Joe, to be young again, like Watcher, and be able to heal relatively reliably in a quick amount of time.
Right.
Youth is wasted on the young.
I'm hearing it. But also, getting old faster than I planned on. Anyhow, I'll tell you what, though, Scott, I've been excited to come do the show because the whole weekend I've been looking at stories going, oh, damn.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about. Hey, real quick, I want to say thanks to you guys for picking up my slack last week. I was busy with work and stuff, so it was nice that you guys were able to hold it down. And I think it was Wednesday. Was it Wednesday? I was able to slide into the chat for a little bit.
I think so. Yeah, I think I remember you being there Wednesday.
That was good fun. And then I saw that you guys had a hell of a show going on Friday. And I thought I was going to be able to make it by the end, but I'll be honest with you, brother. I was out on Friday, and I just came home and went straight to bed.
Nah, that's fine, man.
On that note, I'm going to put Watcher in a 1 minute. I mean, I'm going to put Hunch in a 1 minute timeout, I think. I couldn't get it to work.
Hunch, I swear to God, you next time you see Joe, you better watch your back. And I'm just saying.
Somebody's going to get bayoneted. I'm just saying.
Well, I mean, it's likely to happen anyway. So,
Well, yeah,
it might as well be Hunch, right?
Well, I'm just saying that the next time Hunch is out, Joe's little traps are going to go from little noisemakers at about foot level to roughly what you saw the Ewoks doing.
Yes,
so
yes.
Just be prepared for that.
Yeah, many a student has fallen victim to one of my booby traps, and Hunch, being a booby, will be no different. Keep in mind, he's the guy who just asked me about spending 30 days here. So, yeah, whatever.
Hey, Joe, there was this before we jump into the odds and ends. You had brought up there was a story you wanted to kind of highlight.
I do.
Let's watch her. It's at the top of the show notes there. If you would pull this X post up.
A little security advice and free consulting here.
Yeah.
So yeah, go ahead and play it. I didn't listen to the audio, but
yeah, this is pretty wild. These guys weren't just stealing cars; they were also using some.
Can you guys hear that? It's extremely quiet on my end.
No, I can hear it.
Yeah, we can hear it.
Methods in order to track their victims, and the dollar amount here is staggering. We're talking over $1 million in stolen vehicles, and 5 were announced that were arrested when what investigators are calling a sophisticated theft ring that's been operating since 2022. Deputies say the group, all illegal immigrants, managed to steal more than 80 vehicles. And here's how they did it 3 different ways. Sometimes they just grab cars straight from airport lots. Other times they'd actually rent cars legitimately and then clone the keys. But here's the creepy part. They'd also use Apple AirTags to track families home, follow them, and then steal their cars right from their driveways.
Today's announcement also reflects why we are such a good law and order state. You have various agencies here, many agencies, all working together with one common mission: to protect you, the people of Florida.
Sorry about the choppy video.
Yeah, look at how great we are. Anyway, so the Apple AirTag ding is something that me and Kay and Matt have tossed around back and forth. There is an app out there, and you should all write this down, called AirGuard. What AirGuard is, if you turn on your Bluetooth and run AirGuard, it scans the area within Bluetooth range of you for Apple iTags, Google Tiles, any sort of tracking device that utilizes the Bluetooth network, which they all do. And it will tell you every iPhone, every tracker, every tile that is present in the area. I use it all the time. I leave a hotel to go get back in my car. I run the AirTag thing around my car, and it just run the AirGuard thing, and it lets me know that no one has placed a tile on my car or anything like that. So get AirGuard and use it. We've suspected for a while that this was happening, and this is confirmation of it. And it's just icing on the cake that it's illegal aliens doing it. So be watching for it. I will point out that the Alien Enemies Act does authorize the U.S. Marshal of each district to hire any such persons as he deems discreet to assist him in that. So make friends with your local U.S. Marshal. You might get a little letter of marque on land. So
interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's the whole AirTag thing is kind of, I think a lot of people know about it, but they kind of low key don't have any idea how other people are using it.
I agree with you, Scott. I think the big part there is nobody's really thought of all the potential negative implications yet.
Well, here's the thing. People say, well, they have to be close to you for the AirTag to work. That's not true. If that AirTag can reach any Apple phone that's got its Bluetooth on, it then goes through the network, and they can track it from anywhere. It uses your phone without you knowing it to track you. And you just always got to do the scanning. Make it happen. Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, that was kind of what I saw that during the day, and I was kind of like, well, that's kind of creepy that
It is.
people are using these AirTags that way. Now, there I was looking at the that app that you recommended. Some of the criticisms were that, oh, well, it didn't pick up. I bought a bunch of AirTags and it didn't pick them up, and yada yada yada. But ultimately, you've got to activate an AirTag in order for it to work. So
I'll tell you what, every time I've turned it on, it has identified something, except when I'm here at the camp because there's nothing here. I test it all the time. I'll go into a store and turn it on, and it'll tell me there are 15 iPhones and 5 tags nearby.
Yeah, because it will also detect like iPhones, iPads, things like that, right?
Yep. Anything that's given off a tracker. So it's good stuff.
All right.
Yes. I guess that's Hans. Well, whatever. Yes, I just said that it detects all trackers, Tile, whatever you're using. It does pick any of those up. Any Bluetooth type tracker.
Yeah. All right. I'm just reading Hunch's chat here. Yeah, stolen high-end cars are harder to get out of there than they say than the border states. All right. Let's jump right into the odds and ends, shall we? Now we started a little late, and I apologize for that. So we'll do what we can to kind of pick up some time here. Joe, I always like hearing that there's a new war basically in the offing, right? And it's very rare that it's two people I don't like. Usually it's somebody I like and somebody I don't like.
Yeah.
In this case, I like this war because this is two people I don't really care for deciding that they're gonna, go after each other. And the fact that Syria is doing anything to antagonize Hezbollah, and when I say Syria, I mean the Al Qaeda government of Syria. This is kind of strange credulity, Joe. Maybe it's like, hey, there's too many terrorists in the neighborhood. We got to whittle down the terrorists.
It doesn't to me because Al Qaeda and Iran have never been friends.
They've never been friends. That's correct.
And this is really probably the least surprising. But given the fact that they're having trouble already consolidating their gains, it does seem like a bit of a silly battle to be fighting. So.
Hunch, the answer here is easy. Both Israel and the CIA probably are giving a nudge to the HTS side against Hezbollah.
Remember that time we wwent to war against them, Al Qaeda?
Yeah.
I refuse to use the term HTS. So.
Well, I mean, I think that there is something worth saying that like there's a difference between this part of Al Qaeda and another part of Al Qaeda because you can't say that they're all one kind of unitary organization,
Actually, I can because the leader of HTS is from Saudi Arabia, just like everyone else from Al Qaeda. So.
All right. We could probably argue that one, but that's not going to get us anywhere. Syria versus Hezbollah, distraction tactic or a power shift in the region. I think this is honestly a little bit of both of these sides want to kind of square off against the other. Fighting along the Lebanon-Syria border has escalated with Syria launching artillery and at Hezbollah positions and Hezbollah retaliating with missile strikes. Damascus claims Hezbollah executed 3 Syrian soldiers, but this is really about revenge or something bigger. Syria is facing economic collapse, protests, global isolation. And oh, by the way, they don't control most of their country. Picking a fight with Hezbollah when it is reeling from attacks by Israel could be a calculated distraction, a classic move by struggling regimes to shift focus away from domestic chaos by rallying nationalist sentiments against the external enemy. But what if Hezbollah is the one taking advantage? Hezbollah could be testing its ability to act more independently. Lebanon, meanwhile, is caught in the middle. Civilians are fleeing as rockets hit Hezbollah strongholds near Hermel, and the Lebanese army is struggling to contain the violence. So who is driving the fight, Syria or Hezbollah? Is this a border clash or is it a start of a deeper shift in power. Now, Joe, I will posit that I think it's probably the Al Qaeda backed government of Syria that's doing this, but I think on the other hand, Hezbollah lost a lot of territory in southern Lebanon. And if they could secure more territory in Syria, which is kind of up for grabs at this point, that wouldn't be a bad thing, I don't think. And if I remember correctly, the Alawites have started to kind of align themselves with Hezbollah a little bit.
Well, I don't doubt that it's the Syrian government doing it, because they really do. They really do want to. I don't know the answer to your question, Watcher. By the way, sorry, Watcher was asking another question. If that's true, that's huge. They want to try and draw all the people together and try and get some support behind them against Hezbollah. On the other side, I don't think Hezbollah has territorial aspirations other than towards Israel.
I'm sorry, I just read what Watcher posted.
It would be
we will talk about that in the main segment.
It would be the coolest thing ever if true.
Anywho,
I don't think Hezbollah has territorial aspirations. They want a destruction of Israel, and they want to rule the former Israel. So I think this is entirely driven by the Syrian government. And my question is, where's the Lebanese army in all this? Well, we all know the answer to that, right? The Lebanese army controls a couple of government buildings and maybe a hospital or two, and that's about it. They are a non-player in the region.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Lebanese government is probably the most, I don't know, puppeted, regime in the world. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, it has the least amount of control over their own country.
And it has been since 1967. So,
right, this is not a new thing. Anyway, I don't have a whole lot more information on this, so I thought this would be a good odds and ends to kind of, watch this space, right? When Syria, when Hezbollah and Al Qaeda go to war, we can say that we did have it on our bingo cards, in fact. Because we saw it here first. All right. Let's see. What am I playing?
We don't know.
Is it like scratching my legs? I don't know. All right. Laura Cox. How you doing, by the way, Laura Cox? Let's jump into our next one here. Largest anti-government protest in Serbia's history. Now, Joe, we retreated to what it looks like when you blast a crowd with an LRAD.
Did we show
over
that
the
here?
weekend?
I don't know that we showed it, but I think everyone saw it. But an LRAD will make you think you are on fire, and that's exactly what happened, which was kind of cool.
Let me see if I can find that.
If you watch the video, a lot of people are like, well, I didn't hear any sound. That's because there are two different modes for the LRAD. One is acoustic, and it's loud. The other one is just directed sound energy in another way that makes you feel like your skin is on fire and you're burning from the inside out. And this is what happens when that is affected on a whole crowd.
But I forgot that my video is really choppy today, so you guys aren't going to be able to see much. Oops.
Is it your internet is
it is
awesome?
it is, and I've called the provider. They have to come upgrade the equipment on the side of our building. So
essentially, everyone was standing there chanting their stuff. Then all of a sudden, everyone started running because they thought that something had been applied to their skin, and they took off.
Yeah, it literally the entire street. Actually, you know what? I'll let me if Watcher just post the link in the private chat, and I'll play it.
You go ahead. Also, I think I have another idea too. So you do this, and then I will try and affect my fix.
Yeah, so it's this one right here. All right, so I gotta add to the stage here.
So the question is, where is this? It's in Belgrade, Serbia.
There we go. There we go. All right, so let me. All right, you can see it. I mean, it's like it's parting the waters, man. It's crazy.
Inside the U.S., it is unlawful for police agencies to use that mode. They only let you use the sound mode, but that's pretty darn cool.
Yeah, I mean it's non-lethal. It's not even less than lethal. It's non-lethal. I mean, I guess theoretically somebody could have a heart attack or something. But
PD asks if it can affect the pacemaker. It cannot, because it's not electrical. It's noise. It's sound. It's sonic waves. So, an LRAD, a version of an LRAD, is what we believe caused Havana syndrome among the American embassy staffers in Cuba that the Chinese were using. So,
if you crank it up and turn it on to different modes, that's theoretically what can happen. Yeah.
And they're being used to great effect in anti-piracy operations. You put an LRAD on a boat, and you can direct it just like a laser, and you shine that thing at the laser at the boat turns around and goes the other direction pretty darn quick. And the sound is so loud. If you're using the sound mode, you can induce vomiting almost immediately. It's actually a really neat tool. Very non-lethal, no permanent damage, but it's a really great tool.
All right. Yeah. So anyway, we've got this protest going on in Serbia, and this is essentially. At first, I was worried, Joe, that this was like another version of the color revolutions, but that doesn't seem to be the case. So I've got this story here, and I asked. I kind of looked for some of that stuff that you would normally see in the color revolutions, and I didn't see it. Like wanting to join NATO or wanting to be be closer to Europe or whatever. But that's not the case. This crowd, for the most part, has been the Serbians. Even the protesters are pretty much anti-NATO. And this goes back to the in the 90s when America and our NATO allies were bombing the crap out of the Serbians. So ultimately, this is kind of weird. This is one of those kind of big protests comes out of a relatively little thing, and so this Novi Sad collapse occurred, in which it was what was it some sort of I don't know, like an awning, like a concrete railway canopy in Novi Sad, November 2024, killed 15 people. And that basically kind of snowballed essentially into this larger protest. Now, the big things that they're kind of demanding is accountability for that collapse. And they see that as a kind of symbol for corruption and a large amount of just kind of shoddy workmanship that's gone into infrastructure projects. So that kind of goes to corruption. So ending the corruption is another of the stated demands. They want democratic reforms. It says here there's a strong push for free media, fair elections, and the rule of law. Critics argue that Vucic's government has consolidated power by controlling institutions and stifling dissent. And this kind of draws parallels to some previous authoritarian regimes in that region. They want the resignation of his government, and they want improved public services. So this is defied easy explanation, but ultimately it's turned out some impressive numbers. Yeah, you can see. Watcher, share that video right there. Even with the choppy video, the number of people that they turned out for this is impressive.
Well, you have to wonder how many people thought they were turning out for one issue and turned out for another, and it just all blended into one.
Yeah, it's
But,
kind of like the yellow vests in France, right? It's like you ask ask 10 yellow vest protesters, they got 10 different reasons why they're protesting.
Right. But what matters is the sheer numbers. This is pretty massive. I have not heard from any of my contacts in the UN civil police still operating there, but I imagine it was a rough weekend.
So there was a BBC interviewed a law student, and they said what they want, and they said we just want a country that works. We want institutions that do their jobs properly. We don't want is a party in power, but we need a country that works, not one where you can't get justice for more than 4 months. And I didn't realize that Serbia is only 6 million people.
Yeah.
I thought it was bigger, like maybe 12 to 17 million, but I didn't realize it was that.
Serbia is actually not as big as some of the other former Yugoslavian places, but that entire region is full of a very passionate people. If you recall, 2 years ago, Kosovo and Serbia almost went to war over license plates in one small little enclave between them. So they're willing to protest and fight over almost anything in that region. So pretty interesting.
The kind of the end of the article ends here talking about the kind of the temperature of the mood of the crowd, and it says Serbia remains another one of those east-west fault line countries in which Europe and NATO would like to see a government that moves away from generally warm relations with Putin. Some analysts have warned that the country is ripe for a Western-backed color revolution, and by and large, the population is still anti-NATO, given their memories of the brutal bombing campaign in 1999, led by U.S. warplanes. So, I just don't think this is. I think this is probably more legitimate than a lot of these color revolutions that we've seen, such as the Maidan protests in Ukraine and what was the one in Georgia when they color revolution that country. I can't remember which color that was. The Velvet Revolution, something like that.
Well,
I'm not even sure.
Well, the Velvet Revolution was the
was
actual,
a different one.
That was when communism fell from.
That just popped in my head, but
yeah.
All right.
What country is Budapest again?
Booty Fest.
Anyhow, Budapest. Yeah, I can't remember what. Anyhow.
Bosnia and Herzegovina, I think is where it ended up.
Yeah.
No, it's Hungary. That's the capital. Hungary.
It was Hungary. Yeah, that's right. Hungary.
I was going to say. All right.
My brain always says it should be an Asian country, but yeah. So the Velvet Revolution was Hungary.
Yeah.
So this next one, Joe, this should sound familiar to anybody who's listened to this show for a while, because we talked about, some of the origins of the conflict in Syria and our participation and other countries, kind of willingness to participate and whatnot. Joe, one of the interesting things was Jordan's interest in actually helping us with the Syria stuff that we were doing. But when you look at this next story, you may understand why countries such as Jordan might be interested.
Dollar bills, y'all.
Full circle, Qatar to supply natural gas to Syria via Arab pipeline. Almost exactly 12 years ago, we explained that the sequence of events that would define the face of the Middle East and spark one of the bloodiest conflicts in the region in ages, namely the relentless proxy war seeking control of Syria, was prompted by nothing other than access to commodities in general and the Qatari gas pipeline passing through Syria and onward to Europe in particular. And so the war that saw the birth and death and eventual subsequent rebirth of ISIS, the emergence of countless CIA-funded al-Qaeda spinoffs, and ultimate fall of the Assad regime has gone full circle because, as Reuters report, Qatar, the country whose massive natural gas deposits started it all, is set to provide Syria with gas via Jordan, ostensibly to improve the nation's meager electrical supply and also to boost Syria's new al-Qaeda leaders. The move, which has been spun as the most significant tangible support for the new administration in Damascus by Qatar, one of the region's sternest opponents of the now deposed Bashar al-Assad, the strongest backers of the rebels turned rulers who replaced him, is really just the first step in the gas pipeline access from Qatar to Europe. Joe, this is one of the things we talked about, like literally from the first time we really dug deep into Syria, was, how quickly are they going to get this done? Because the people in Qatar and other places in the Middle East want those pipelines done.
Yeah, the Middle East has always been about money and making money. And unfortunately, though, it's not money for the betterment of their countries. It's money for the betterment of their ruling parties, ruling families. But money makes for strange bedfellows.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely not wrong. Watcher, when we started talking about this for the first time, were you kind of surprised? I mean, I know this is not one of those areas that you really kind of studied heavily. Were you kind of surprised just kind of how connected all this was? Or is this kind of like, same shit, different day?
Somewhat. I understood that, like, that's what made the East, the Middle East, this giant political quagmire and something that was worth talking about for most of my adult life. But I guess I didn't quite understand some of the driving forces behind a lot of this.
Yeah.
So it's I think I'm most surprised by, I hate to say it, but I'm most surprised by how utterly fucking stupid the whole situation looks like from the outside. I get it in some ways, like when you dig really deep down in the weeds and start to try and empathize with each individual party, you start to come along with something of a picture. Not really, because for the most part, a lot of their arguments boil down to what I view as ridiculous. But who knows? I mean, everybody gets ridiculous about their religion.
Yeah. Well, so I guess, looking at this from a kind of a broader perspective, it's not to say that Syria didn't have problems and that all these fracture lines and things like this weren't already there, because they were, right? The problem is when money gets involved, then other people have a reason to kind of stick their business into somebody else's country.
Well, and it's not small amounts of money either.
Oh, no, it's big. I mean, this is really big money. And so, and Joe, it's this kind of money that is why I think that despite the fact that we may at some point be completely energy, sufficient again in the near future, and we may become a net exporter of energy. Just because that's the case, that doesn't mean we lose our interest in the Middle East as a whole, right? Because what happens in the Middle East has the ability to kind of spread to other places.
Much like the Red Sea situation.
Well, like I saw one of the criticisms about the Red Sea situation, and we're going to talk about that here in a little bit, but it's basically said, the only people that make out on that is, China gets better access to Europe and, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, the point is that we don't use the Suez Canal that much, right? Well,
yeah.
Okay. If you were completely utilitarian, that may be a decent point. But the point is that when a country attacks us in the open sea, right, we can either ignore it and go away and essentially tuck our tail between our legs and fuck off, right? Or we can continue to engage with the people who made that really, really bad decision. And so, like, one of the things that I'd like to just kind of take this moment is to say this is another war that did not start under Trump, but I bet based on the way it's going, literally right now, it will probably end under Trump. Because it looks like they're finally doing what they should have done all along. But anyway, we'll push pause there, and we'll go into our final odds and ends here. Oh, well, that was our final odds. So we can go straight into that one. But before we do so, you want to talk a little bit about tactical-wisdom.com?
Sure. I put out an article last night about why do you need to train in fieldcraft? And it's a pretty good one. I mean, why do I need to train in fieldcraft? Because you don't always get to pick the game, right? You might think you're going to live out your little house on the prairie existence. If the lights go out, you're just going to grow food and live with your family. But the other side gets a vote. And you might need some skills in order to be able to move quietly and more securely in a less than ideal environment. So this talks about that. We have a fieldcraft class coming up here at Camp Ponderosa, April 24th through the 27th. I'm relatively sure there won't be any snow then. And we can get out and actually practice some of these skills, learn how to use a map and compass, learn how to move in a contested environment, and learn how to camouflage yourself and your gear. We talk about how to build a few different kinds of tarp shelters. All the ones that we build go up in under 3 minutes, and they come down in less than 10 seconds. So we do a little bit of tactical arts and crafts to make that happen. We build something that will make your tarp shelters go up fast and come down faster. But it's a great class, and I recommend you come out and do it. Check out the website. You can find books, T-shirts, patches, all kinds of things. And I've got 3 T-shirts and some patches that got to go out today. So check it out. Check out tactical-wisdom.com. Check out our training courses page. Check out everything we have up there and support our affiliates. So good stuff.
Absolutely. Good deal. All right. Let's jump into this.
Hold on. I'm sorry. I forgot one last piece. In that article, I mentioned 2 new courses that are coming out this year. Mountain Survival, and then a winter variant of Mountain Survival, where we talk about how to build various snow shelters and the difference in movement and survival skills in the winter than in the summer. Because over the winter here, there were several stories of snowmobilers getting in accidents or running out of gas and being trapped in the wilderness and not having any idea what to do. So I just thought we would throw those classes up there, make them more of an appeal to the general public. So we will have survival classes here all summer as well. 2-day class, Saturday, Sunday, easy stuff.
Very good. All right. Let's, by the way, I just realized that if you guys were to start drinking every time I said, let's jump into something, then that would be several drinks a show.
Well, last week I did comment to everyone that I would, at the end of each segment, say, all right. And then just like you do. Right. So, yeah.
All right. Well, that's my way of saying, like, all right, we're not transitioning. We're moving on.
Yeah.
All right.
There it was. All right.
All right. Okay. Let's see. America on the March. All right. So we're talking here about like several things, but they're all kind of generally aligned with a much more muscular foreign policy that we're seeing under this new. I mean, I can't imagine why things have changed so completely in American foreign policy, but yet they have. Joe, you know, we were talking quite a bit over the last couple of years about how essentially, you know, it was feckless leadership by the Biden administration that kept the military from acting correctly and responding to this Houthi threat. And it seems that, like, I think probably Trump, like many, he tries to, you know, talk first, but the talking time is over with the Houthis, and the Houthis are probably not long for this world. Pentagon says operation to continue overnight against Yemen's Houthis. Now, Joe, I wanted to say that I'm going to share a link watcher, and this is video from CENTCOM. This is some of the best Yeah. Let's look at this. All right. I'm sharing. All right. Sharing the link now. Watch it now. There's a couple videos in this and a couple pictures to include our thumbnail. If you could share the second video, it's very short. But Joe, I know that thermal optics are all the rage, but look at the quality of this. I just realized that when I was watching this, that the resolution on this thermal is absolutely crazy.
Well, these videos are two things. One, they're good propaganda for our own people. They're also putting America's enemy on notice of how good our thermal imaging technology is, right? If you remember way back in the 80s, the Department of Defense released some mapping they did from space of the underground catacombs in Cairo. Literally no one cared about the underground catacombs in Cairo, but we were letting the Russians know we can see all of their underground complexes with our ground penetrating radar. Same deal here, right? We're just letting everyone else who might fight us know, look at how good our thermal imaging is. So on that note, Matt and I have included drones and thermals now in the scout class.
Yeah.
H. John Poole just wrote a new book called The Debilitating Tools of War, where he talks about counter-drone and counter-thermals. And guess what he says? The same thing I keep saying, that good light infantry skill sets defeat them. So,
yeah, it's not a silver bullet, right? It's just another tool.
It's a great tool. Yeah.
Right. Joe, watcher, share that meme real quick because I thought this was appropriate. This is the Navy. This is the Navy saying, "Stop! I have a peer adversary." And CENTCOM, the CENTCOM Chad in the beard says, "Stand by for TLAM coordinates." We can't get away from TLAM. TLAM is that old girlfriend that just won't go away that you can't say no to.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? That's what's funny is we have all these cool new tools. Nothing beats just hitting things with a sledgehammer, right?
I mean, you're not wrong.
Now, imagine they start throwing rock-eye clusters like the old school 80s action. It'd be...
Oh, yeah. Exactly right.
Hardcore.
Okay, so let's
this is the most baller picture ever. You're wearing a Donald Trump brand shirt and a MAGA hat while blowing up sand in the desert. This is a baller photo.
I know. I like it. I like it.
Thumbs All right, let me and everything. Oh,
let me. I'm surprised. I just gotta say, I know this edit is coming, but I'm surprised nobody has yet brought up the. And now they see this battle station is fully operational.
I mean, there's no reason why you can't be the one that does that, Watcher. All right. In overnight hours, local, the U.S. military launched what appears to be a second wave of airstrikes on Yemen. U.S. Central Command posted new videos Sunday saying that operations continue. The United States and Iran-backed Houthi rebels in Yemen are both vowing escalation after U.S. launched airstrikes to deter the rebels from attacking military and commercial vessels on one of the world's busiest shipping corridors. Like with similar strikes under Biden and now under Trump, where's Congress, the authorization for a new war in the Middle East? So the irony here is, Joe, that this war, nobody said anything about needing authorization when Biden was there, right? Because Biden was the one who absolutely got us into this. So it's a little bit of kind of like.
I do want to point something out, and it started with CENTCOM and has grown to all of the media and all of that. In every single story, though, it doesn't just say Yemen or the Houthis. It always says Iran backed.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind. That they're actually not just pushing for a war here with Yemen, right? There are certain elements within the DoD, and I know you can't comment, but that are just salivating over the opportunity to punch some Iranians in the nose. And while I agree that we should probably sink to Bashad, I don't know that we should go much further than that.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of like going after countries just because they're building a weapon I don't want them to have, right? Believe it or not, countries have the ability to maximize their own kind of defense, and if
says right in the UN Charter that every nation has a right to self-defense. So,
you've got. I understand the response that says we shouldn't get involved in this, but this is one of those kind of things like you can't just stop, right? Because then that allows them to declare victory. What you have to do is extract yourself, but also extract some victory from, something you can at least declare victory on, and then take your ball and go home.
By the way, the Houthis claim to have sunk the Ford. Or
right.
The Truman.
The Truman
for about the fifth time now. So,
on that note, Yemen's health minister says that 32 people, including children, died after Saturday's major U.S. strikes. Donald Trump warned the Houthis not to attack ships passing through the Red Sea, but that's precisely what the Houthis did. A Houthi military announcement claimed the group carried out a qualitative operation on the United States aircraft carrier Harry S. Truman. Our forces targeted the Truman aircraft carrier with 18 ballistic missiles and cruise missiles and a drone, said the spokesperson said. Let's see. Deputy head of the Houthi media office described the Saturday's deadly U.S. airstrikes, which were reportedly hit 170 sites. Now, that is a number we did not see under the Biden administration, for sure.
Correct.
This is significantly heavier than what we've seen in the past. They won't deter the Shia armed group backed by Iran. They said Sana'a will remain Gaza's shield and support and will not abandon it no matter what the challenges. But later in the day, Sunday, an unnamed Pentagon official was quoted in Reuters as rejecting the Houthi claim. The official dismissed the claim that the missile or drone attack came close to hitting the Truman. A subsequent Fox report said U.S. warships shot down any inbound Houthi drones, and they were not a serious threat. Saturday's strike. Now, see, here's the thing. I absolutely believe that.
So do I. I believe that only Russia or China has any potential to get anywhere near an aircraft carrier, and Russia would have a hard time doing it. So,
or
Yemen not only
Sweden,
results,
but not applicable. But
let's see. President Trump vowed to use overwhelming lethal force while warning Iran to immediately cut its support. Your time is up. Your time is up. Your attacks must stop starting today. If they don't, hell will rain down to you like nothing you've ever seen before, the president said on Truth Social. I have ordered the U.S. military to launch a decisive and powerful military operation against the Houthi terrorists in Yemen. He said, overwhelmingly lethal force until we've achieved our objective.
And I know in the other side, the op order said debilitating and unrelenting. So there's a lot more to it. This is way more teeth than there was in Prosperity Guardian.
A lot more. I mean, this is a significant kind of escalation in what you would normally see, at least what we've seen in recent years. All right, let's jump into this next article. So this next one's a Washington Post article. Pentagon deploys Navy destroyer for unusual U.S. border mission. Now, Joe, this is kind of what I've been wanting to see them do for a long time. And that is essentially paying more attention to the Western Hemisphere and to our actual national security versus this vague notion of national security on the other side of the globe.
Yes. And I can remember the day when a Coast Guard, they call it the World Class, right? The bigger cutter.
Yeah.
The World Class cutter was essentially a destroyer or cruiser, right? Right now, it's essentially the size of a cruiser, but armed just about the same as a destroyer. But I digress. This is a good thing. Glad to see it.
You're talking about the Legend class.
The Legend class,
yeah. I think there was a world class.
There was a world class. Now it's a legend.
But it's an old one, yeah. But yeah, you're right. I think though that legend class is ultimately what I think that's what they should have used for the frigate. The U.S. frigate, because that's how big it is. It's damn big. Pentagon deploys Navy destroyer for unusual U.S. border mission. The warship might be sent to patrol the Caribbean Sea or the Gulf of America, which President Donald. Oh, I see what I just said Gulf of America, and then they said which President Donald Trump has renamed the Gulf of America. Pentagon has deployed let's see, I've already said that. USS Gravely, a guided missile destroyer, left Naval Weapons Station Yorktown in Virginia on Saturday as part of the Defense Department's response to President Donald Trump's executive order calling for securing the southern border. Now, Joe, what a tough gig that is to cruise the Gulf of America.
I think it's silly, but okay. It's funny, but it's also silly.
I'm just saying. I mean, you got to admit. I mean, if you're gonna be on a cruise and a destroyer, that's about as good a cruise as you could pick, right?
Yes, that's true. It's not a bad one. A couple of nice ports of call on there. You probably only stop at French and Dutch ports, which are the good ones. So
the good ones, yeah, that's a good. Or the Gulf Coast, that would be all right. General Gregory Guillot, who oversees U.S. Northern Command, said in a statement that Gravely will improve U.S. abilities to protect the United States territorial integrity, sovereignty, and security. A coordinated and robust response combating maritime-related terrorism, weapons proliferation, transnational crime, piracy, environmental destruction, and illegal seaborne immigration. Joe, if you are taking...
That sounds literally like the mission of the Coast Guard.
Well, what I was going to say is that, with all these overseas commitments, we've got probably a quarter of the Coast Guard outside of the CONUS area,
Yeah.
So if you're going to bolster, the defenses, this is a decent way to do it, especially if you have a significant threat of kind of maritime smuggling and maritime terror-based organizations. And, with the cartels becoming terror organizations, then this kind of paints this response in a new picture, no?
Now I have a different approach, and you might call me absolutely crazy for this, but perhaps, and hear me out, we pull the Coast Guard back to, I don't know, guard the coast, and we use our Navy to project power. I know,
come on, Joe.
Crazy, right?
Come on, Joe. Don't get twisted here, brother.
But we have to be Team America World Police and be out here with our law enforcement agency all over the world, right?
Well, if I had my way, we'd pull back. We'd pull back from the whole world and concentrate on the Western Hemisphere. So, Trump has repeatedly said in recent weeks that he wants to take back the Panama Canal, the vital waterway that connects the Caribbean Sea and the Pacific Ocean. Let's see. The Pentagon has no announcement to make about a change to the U.S. military presence in Panama. By the way, Joe, did you see over the weekend there was an explosion at a power plant in Panama, and like the entire country was blacked out?
I believe I was blamed for it at one point, but
I remember my response was not it.
But you're the one who was out of contact for a week.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
I believe it was probably Sibley's fault, but I have been on the road that the La Chorrera power plant is on. But yeah, it was interesting. That's a problem with a country like that. You have one big plant for everything, and when that goes down, that's it. And a lot of folks think Panama is way bigger than it is. It's literally a strip of land along the canal, right? So you essentially have a power wire that goes down and a power wire that comes back, and that kind of runs their whole country.
Pete Hegseth, the SecDef, has repeatedly said that they views border security as national security. I agree with that. Sending thousands of active duty troops to the southern border. We have defended other places and other spaces we will defend. Now we will defend this line. The deployment of the Gravely in Northern Command's region leaves open the possibility that it could conduct patrols in the Gulf of America. Doing so would allow the administration to draw attention to the name change that represents a symbol of military strength. Yeah, so I kind of glossed over that there, but they conspicuously said the Gulf of Mexico, which Trump renamed the Gulf of America on his first day in office. I mean, talk about passive aggressive and just pettiness of the American media. These U.S. defense officials in their statement Saturday night said that the destroyer will travel with a small group of Coast Guard members aboard, raising the possibility that the vessel could assist in detention of migrants. Yeah, so that's the law enforcement role potentially. No, Joe?
Well, yeah, you have a real problem with that in that there's an act called the Posse Comitatus Act. So it's a tough call. They'll probably have to call on the Coast Guard to help them on those, and we have tons of Coast Guard assets in the area. So,
all right. So anyway, I thought this was interesting. Now, so this connects into something that I've talked about in the past, which is kind of focusing on like a new Monroe Doctrine, or this idea of hemispheric defense, right? And so I want to share this this article. This is, I think, like a week old, but it actually kind of ties this into a kind of a broader discussion, making sense of hemispheric defense in Trump's era. President Trump's worldview is greater coordination for national and hemispheric defense across the Americas. Hence, the push for stronger economic integration between the United States, Canada. Coupled with hardening defense perimeter stretching from the Arctic to the Panama Canal. And so kind of this is if you open the story there, Watcher, I think this kind of like there's a really good picture here that kind of lays out what this is all about. I guess you still have the old article. There we go. All right. Yeah. So just kind of scroll down so that the picture of the flat Earth,
completely the Earth is flat.
Yeah. So this kind of gives you a good illustration of what he's looking to do, right? So you've got America, and then you've got this kind of line that goes straight up to the kind of the North Pole, and
when it goes around the state of Greenland. Right.
Oh, the state of Greenland. That's right. 51st state of Canada as well, Joe. And then draws that line right there at the Panama Canal at the bottom. So you just kind of scroll down just a little bit, and you can see the whole thing. Yeah. So this is what it looks like. Trump is kind of focusing on. Whether it's acquiring new territory such as Greenland or Panama Canal, or just kind of shoring up our defense. Alberta, all of Canada, if you would believe it.
No, I don't want those leeches in Ottawa or in.
I don't either. Brother. Quebec. I like the what is it, the Southern Alaska kind of paradigm where they basically stretch all the way to Alberta, right? And that's where the kind of line the cutoff is.
Eastern Alberta, Northwest Territories. Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, this kind of goes to some of the things that Steve Bannon had been talking a lot about. He talked about them in the first administration, but they kind of got short shift. But he's talks about it a lot on his program. He's covered the Arctic as the great game of the 21st century. He recently warned Canada's military weakness that is a soft underbelly for North America. He argued that Trump will boost hemispheric defense across the Americas. It's all about hemispheric control. Bannon has previously said, noting that it will be time for now. Hemispheric defense does not just mean the Northern America. That really looks at the entire, Western Hemisphere as a kind of a broader,
way back
Hegemony.
Right after this country founded, the U.S. Marine Corps and the British Marines sort of made a deal with their emblems, right? The U.S. Marine Corps emblem shows the Western Hemisphere, and the Royal Marine emblem shows the Eastern Hemisphere. And that was meant to signify the spheres of control for the two navies, right? And it's not wrong, right? We should kind of stick to that.
Yeah, I totally agree, Joe. I mean, it makes a whole lot more sense for us to put energy into the Western Hemisphere. And
so
I just
we
feel
take
like
over
we're
the
gonna get more from
Falklands
it.
when?
Well, I mean, we'll let that would be that'd give us something good to kind of bargain with the mad Argentinian down there with his chainsaw. If we can get England to sell us the Falklands, and then we can trade it to Argentina for something.
I still have not heard him make a public statement about that. And that's troubling because the official government position of Argentina is that the Malvinas or Falklands are theirs. And I'd like to hear him say that, no, they're not. They belong to Britain.
All right. Let me let's start with this first video here, Watcher.
People with blood on their hands, Boris Johnson, Joe Biden, the elites in Europe, NATO, Petraeus, all of them, Stavridis, the whole Morning Joe crowd, David Ignatius, MSNBC in primetime, all of you have blood on your hands. And right there, so succinct, in 4 or 5 minutes, he lays it right out. Boom. And I'm telling you, he is going to make a deal with Russia that we can finally counterbalance the Chinese Communist Party and bring peace, and then have hemispheric defense here in Europe and Paris. They're going to have to figure it out. We bailed you out in World War I. We bailed you out again in World War II. We bailed you out the third time in the Cold War. No more. You're not a vassal state. We don't want a vassal state. You're all over top of us on tariffs, right? You're always gaming the system. We're done. And not that we're an ally, but an ally is an kind of equal partner. You guys have sucked off the American people. And what they're doing now, the elites are sitting there and they're in shock.
Whoa. Phrasing.
I was going to say the same thing. But he actually raises an interesting point. All these countries whining about tariffs have always had tariffs on U.S. products.
Mm-hmm.
Like Canada has a 250 to 325% tariff on American dairy products, always has. And yet they're angry about 25% on their stuff.
Joe, one of the things that he kind of articulates here that I think most people miss is that, they're probably thinking, using Russia against China, that's crazy talk. Russia and China are friends.
We're all laughing at Roland, but anyway.
Thank you for this wonderful test of the Rumble censorship or lack of censorship. I'm well impressed.
Yeah.
But the idea there, Joe, is that those who know that Russia and China are natural adversaries. Maybe not enemies, but they're definitely not. Their interests are not aligned. And they're smart. He was smart to key in on that Trump would be able to use Russia potentially to balance against China in Asia.
I'm sorry. I was reading something about the Falklands. I really do apologize. What did you just say?
I said, Joe, this is something that you and I have been talking about quite a bit. And Bannon was smart to key in on is the fact that Russia is a natural adversary to China.
Absolutely, always has been, always will be. They fought a couple of border skirmishes and wars, and if we can leverage that somehow, that would be great. Now, I heard a guy talking over the weekend about a Russia-China-U.S. alliance. That's never going to happen. But Russia and U.S. against China, that is entirely within the realm of possibility. They have always been an issue.
The irony is I could see a much more likelihood of an alliance between Europe and China before I could see Russia, like a real lasting Chinese-Russia alliance.
Absolutely. I just don't see China as being a partner to us ever, though. I really don't.
Not to us. No, absolutely not.
Yeah. But us and Russia, absolutely. I mean, we already have reservations full of Siberian Americans here. It's a natural partnership.
Unless China were to break apart, Joe.
Wow.
And that is not the most fanciful thing out there in the world.
Before we move on,
it's the second most fanciful thing in the world. But yeah,
well, then embracing freedom is the most fanciful.
Well, yeah. So before we move on, before we get lost, and before I lose that wonderful transition, speaking of what I'm now going to begin terming as Siberian Americans, Canada sells their milk in bags. We don't want it. You're
That's a really good
damn point. Right, PD.
That's why they got the tariff on ours.
It's wrong. It's wrong. All right.
Scott, you want me to fire the second video?
Yeah, let's play the second one.
MSNBC and all the warmongers that goaded, just like Mersheimer said, Dave Brett, Mersheimer called it. He said the West is going to lead Ukraine down the primrose path because it wants to take these guys in Western Europe, and all the elites want to take on Russia. They're going to lead them down the primrose path to their destruction, and they'll fight. They'll stay there and fight until the last Ukrainian dies. President Trump right there lays it out. This is clarity. This is moral clarity. This is also a man that can step into a decision and bring this horrible thing to an end. Just so you understand history. When people talk about World War II and World War II and World War II this, World War II that, from 1939, September 1st, which is kind of the official beginning of the European War, from September 1939 all the way until basically the German army in June of 1941. And in 1941, within 6 months, the Germans go against the Russians in Operation Barbarossa. And then the Japanese attack us 6 months later in Pearl Harbor. So 1941 is really when it kicks off. If you take that time, I don't know, you got a couple of 100,000 dead at most. The invasion of Poland, the invasion of France, the Blitz of London. There's some other operations going on. There's obviously some stuff with they're attacking in North Africa and so on. There's activity, but there's nothing compared to what happened in Ukraine. You have to understand the scale of this debacle, the scale of this tragedy. For what? For what? We said that on this show on the eve of that war, and all day long on CNN and all these experts who all mocked Trump the entire time. Because go back, this is when Trump was in the wilderness. Trump had no power and wasn't coming back to power except for this audience.
So what he does a good job there is articulating the kind of the disengagement of America from these kind of Eurocentric wars and these things that ultimately have nothing to do with us. And he also articulates kind of, something we talked about here on this show, that if Ukraine wants a prosperous future, they declare neutrality and deal equally with the EU and Russia. But no, it's exactly like he said. Europe and the West led Ukraine down the primrose path and into basically a meat grinder.
And they just issued a whole statement, the EU did, about America daring to go around their back and try to make peace. Can you imagine being angry that someone wants to make peace and end the killing?
Yeah.
That's just silly. But my only problem with that whole thing by Steve Bannon was he seemed to think that Germany and Japan would have been okay if they hadn't attacked us and the Russians. I have a problem with that because the Germans were doing some pretty horrific things no matter what they took over. Right.
So I think it's one of those kind of things, Joe, that in order for them not to have attacked us, they would have had to have been completely different countries with completely different systems, right? It's like the systems that they had could only go one way. And let's be honest, that's the system the Chinese have right now.
Yes.
And so, for those who think that China, it could just, we could just not go to war. No, they will eventually go to actual war, where they're in their kind of, they're in their own version of war right now. But eventually they will enter into our version of war. And this is something that's inevitable. It's a matter of time because China will not be stymied much longer, and it will start with Taiwan, and it will go from there.
It will start with Kinmen Island, and then it will go from there, which is Taiwan. Which is Taiwan. Yeah.
Let's play this final clip from Bannon here. Not this one.
Your hands.
Not this one. This is that's the first one. Go down. That one.
Okay.
2.0. And that's going to be from taking back the Panama Canal to make sure the Chinese Navy and the Russian Navy can never hook up in the Caribbean, all the way up to Greenland. And remember, Greenland, if you control Greenland or in partnership with a free Greenland and have bases there like we've had in World War II, there it was to keep the sea lanes open. Here is to close the sea lanes against Russian fast attack and ballistic missile submarines coming out of the Arctic, out of both Murmansk and Archangel.
Hey, push pause.
Sea lane.
Joe, what did we talk about on this? The first time anybody mentioned Greenland, what did we talk about? We talked about the SOSUS line, right?
Right. Yep, the SOSUS net. Yep.
I mean, you don't have to have been like a master of naval combat in the 80s to know what that is. You just had to read the Prophet, Tom Clancy's books, peace be upon him, to know the instrumental nature of the SOSUS net and why the ability to shut down those sea lanes is so critical.
So, first of all, if you've never read Red Storm Rising, you probably should, right?
Yeah.
It really explains the importance of the North Atlantic, and they have a second battle of the North Atlantic. Pretty fantastic book. It lays out a very plausible theory. There's another similar book called Red Metal, written by Mark Greaney, who is a writer for the Tom Clancy organization. Now that Tom Clancy has passed. But he posits a war between Russia and the West, beginning with the destruction of undersea cables, the SOSUS net, and some internet connectivity tables. And if you read the Prophet's book, Debt of Honor, when the Japanese decide to attack Guam and Saipan, what's the first thing they did? They cut the undersea cables that connect those nations to the mainland and let information get out. No one knew that Japan in the movie had attacked Guam and in the book had attacked Guam and Saipan. And now we see Russia and China cutting cables all over the world. It's training, it's practice, and it's building up that Peter and the Wolf thing, right? The boy who cried wolf. They're trying to make it that way. So.
All right. Go ahead and push play. This is a 4-minute video, so we probably won't watch it all.
People do, and not just have tracking sonobuoys, but actually control it with naval forces, and you control the Panama Canal. You've essentially hermetically sealed the United States from attack by the Soviets, by the Russians. If you add then Canada geostrategically, because the new great game, and the great game people should know, was this strategic contest in the 19th century between the British Empire and the Russian Empire through Afghanistan and Persia for access to warm water ports and to access to India, which Britain was trying to stop. The new great game of the 21st century is going to be the Arctic. It's already a great power struggle between the Chinese Communist Party and the Russians up there. Canada's former most secure border, your northern provinces, are now your soft underbelly. And so what President Trump is saying is that if you look at the entire picture, everywhere from the 3 island chains in the Pacific, that would just guarantee that the Pacific became a natural barrier for Canada, coupled with what's happening in the Arctic, what the United States is going to do, coupled with Greenland and this hemispheric defense. There's such a compelling logic on both geostrategically and geoeconomically when you look at the combination of the markets. This is what President Trump, I think, is talking about tariffs. If you look at particularly your Western provinces, for people in Canada, the Western provinces of Canada are not that much different than Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, Oklahoma, Texas. It's that Western frontier mentality with the same kind of natural resources, both agriculture and natural resources and oil and gas. So there's so many compelling logic, and President Trump's laying it out there. Don't look at Canada separate from Greenland and from Panama because it's of a whole piece. He's
about
hemispheric defense.
Okay.
And once you, by the way, think about it. So this is
okay.
for the Canadians too on your defense budget and particularly NATO. He said today with NATO that, and this goes for Canada, he says, hey, no offense, we bailed you out in World War I. We bailed you out in World War II. We bailed you out in the Cold War. You're just not a priority anymore. And the Russian army is kind of your problem. We'll still be there, but it's not vital national security interests. And the Canadian people, I think, have to have a deep conversation with themselves about the direction of the 21st century. I mean, Canada's been a tremendous ally of the United States, but they've been a better ally of Britain and Europe. Look at the blood sacrificed by the Canadian people in World War I. Look at the massive. Look at the bravery. People never talk about it, but on D-Day, look at the sacrifice of the Canadian forces at the tip of the spear on D-Day. And
pause here. So what he's really getting to is the fact that the heart of Canada is way more like America than it is. Now, does that mean that Canada needs to become part of America? I don't think so. I think that's kind of a little bit of grandiose kind of talk in order to kind of gin up the idea of this kind of a much closer, bond between Canada and the United States. I mean, Joe, you identified it that Ottawa and essentially the eastern part of Canada is essentially a giant Massachusetts or California, when it comes to progressive politics and that kind of thing.
Even in the north, like none of it's an entirely dependent population, right?
Right.
But so is Greenland. So
anyway, I just think that Bannon's articulating this very well, and he's one of the few pundits out there that actually gets this type of, I think, this grand strategic kind of thinking. Most of the pundits, they'll focus on political issues, and maybe some of them will focus a little bit on military things and whatnot. But ultimately, this is one of the most cogent arguments that I've heard for a hemispheric defense of the U.S. So I just wanted to bring this out and kind of link this to what's happening with some of this other stuff that's going on. I was going to talk about this. I don't know if you guys saw, the judge basically said, turn those planes around. You can't take those people to El Salvador, but Trump did it anyway. And so I guess they're setting up for a Supreme Court. I don't know that guys, unless you're super interested in this, I'd rather kind of talk about something else here at the last part of this segment.
I just want to say that they did strategically plan this, the flight. The flight was already gone by the time this was issued. So what are you going to do, right? You're not going to turn around. I do think it's funny that the judge tried to issue an order to Nayib Bukele, telling him to return to people, and Bukele essentially laughed at him. These U.S. district judges, this is the problem I want to talk about. U.S. district judges do not have the same authority as a president of the United States, nor should they. It takes a 2/3 vote of Congress to overrule a presidential veto. It takes the Supreme Court to overrule the president, not a single district court judge in outer Podunk, Oklahoma.
Well, let me go through something here that I don't think people quite appreciate, and they probably should. Do you know what it takes to remove a federal judge?
A 50%.
No,
vote?
Actually, almost nothing. Almost nothing. They can be removed by the president for basically, like, they don't even have to prove misconduct. It's for serving.
You just roboted right at roboted right as you said what it was.
Serving under bad behavior.
Yeah. Yeah. What was it? Law of self-defense or whatever. Andrew Bronco was talking about that. I was kind of surprised to find out it was that easy, but evidently it's a thing.
It is, and the whole deal is that it's I think the reason nobody's done it yet is it's one of those, hey, whoever uses it first gets to be responsible for when their opponent uses it against them.
Yeah. No, that's actually a really good point. I mean, it's kind of like when the nuclear option, when they took that off the table, or for the judges, the 50% thing in the Senate. It used to be 60, but they changed it, and so now we're basically passing judges with 51 votes. Hey, Watcher, I dropped a link in the private chat. I'd like to do this story next because this is kind of a bigger deal, I think, and it's a domestic kind of Trump related thing. And speaking of things, we're going to get, somebody's going to get this.
Well, hold on.
Is going to go to court.
Scott, this is important, but did you want to cover my other story you told everyone we would talk about and would at least mention? It's the potential story, even not even necessarily a real one.
Let's do this one first, and then that one will have more importance as to why it.
I see. Okay, I get it. Yeah.
Cause and effect, right? So, so Trump is getting ready to piss a lot of Democrats off. Trump declares Biden's auto pen sign pardons void. 10 days after the hearing. Okay, so let's just skip right to it. Down here, go straight to the Trump tweet or Trump Liberty
Social
Post,
Truth Social.
Truth, his truth, Trump's truth. The pardons of Sleepy Joe Biden's gave the unselect committee.
No, you can't. We got to have Matt do it. Matt's
I know, I'm not very good at it. And many others are hereby declared void, vacant, and no further force or effect. It sounds to me like that's some very specific language that he's using there.
Yeah.
Because of the fact that they are done by auto pen. In other words, Joe Biden did not sign them, but more importantly, he did not know anything about them. The necessary pardoning documents were not explained to or approved by Biden. He knew nothing about them, and the people that did may have committed a crime. Therefore, those on the unselect committee who destroyed and deleted all the evidence obtaining, that's actually pretty funny.
Well,
during the 2 year, hold on, so let me finish, and then you can jump in. During their 2 year witch hunt of me and many other innocent people should fully understand that they are subject to investigation at the highest level. The fact is that they're probably responsible for the documents that were signed on their behalf without the knowledge or consent of the worst president in the history of our country, crooked Joe Biden.
Well,
Go ahead.
So I ended up spending a lot of hours last night researching this just because it. So somebody that I like came across. Yeah, kind of. So L was researching this last night, and interesting. At first glance, the leftists want to tell you that this is a cut and dry issue, and it does appear to be. There are a lot of lawyers that will say this as well, that, oh no, the Supreme Court has ruled an auto pen is valid. Well, that's not entirely true. Remember that all these laws and rules have incredibly hyper specific and narrow applications. So the approval for the auto pen, at first people were like, oh, they can prove that he was out of DC when the auto pen was used. Well, that doesn't matter. In fact, the very first use of the auto pen was by Obama when he was in France. But here's the key difference. That was to sign a bill that was approved by Congress. That wasn't to do something that could be made up out of whole cloth and then signed off without the president's knowledge of anything ever happening. There are a lot of nuances here, and there really probably is a case for this. Also, he made some wording on a statement, or Trump made some wording on a statement earlier about this that I thought was very interesting. He said that it's not him making the decision, that it's not just him saying this, that they're basically, he's in concert with a whole team of lawyers who are advising him that this is the way things need to happen. which is good to hear because given how brash the man is about some of the choices that he makes, I'm glad to hear it's not just him saying this.
Well, yeah, he even goes so far as to say that on Air Force One, he told reporters, "It's not my decision. That'll be up to a court, but I would say they're null and void because I'm sure Biden didn't have any idea what they were taking place, and somebody was using AutoPen to sign off and give pardons."
In other words, this statement was premature, and this is Donald Trump being Donald Trump. I wish for his own good he hadn't put this out. What he should have done is waited for the lawyers to get it all sorted out and then issue a actual document, right? So what's happening is now everyone's going to be arguing about this, and it's not official government policy yet, right? It's not actual. This has not actually happened. And it's always Trump wanting to be the grandstander. And it'd be good if it was true, but right now we don't know that it's true. It still has to go through some sort of a legal process.
Yeah, like my thought is that what we'll know that Trump actually really believes this if he actually like says, okay, you can prosecute somebody from the January 6th committee or something like that, right?
This right here again is Pam Bondi saying on Thursday I'm releasing the Epstein files.
Yeah. Well, so funnily enough, though, we do see this is unconfirmed. This is a myth and a rumor as far as we understand it. But if this is true, it would go a little way to back up at least that Trump thinks that this is going to go down a specific way. Word going around the internet is that Obi-Wan Nairobi is the newest addition to Donald Trump's security team.
So I mean, I guess Trump may be anticipating problems in the security realm, Joe.
Yes, but Trump's the first president to have a blended team. I guarantee you this guy doesn't work for the Secret Service because he doesn't qualify. I don't know, though, that he actually qualifies for a security clearance to put him on even the private side of this detail. I would hope that this is true. But let me point out one small thing that keeps happening, and this is a big problem in the private military contracting world. A good special forces operator does not always make a good protective services agent. Although in this case, I would probably make an exception.
Well, you got to admit, Delta and SAS do they're the ones who actually do that kind of high-end, executive protection in the
Scott
in the
just defended the entire United States Army, U.S. Marine Corps, and NCIS Protective Services divisions. But okay, sure.
Insulted or defended?
Insulted. You said Delta and all that. That's not true. The United States Army Criminal Investigation Command, the United States Marine Corps Criminal Investigation Division, and the Naval Criminal Investigative Service conduct most of the protective details of U.S. officials overseas.
Yeah,
Delta does sometimes provide support, but they don't do all of it. No.
I'll be on. You're right. We'll make an exception for this guy, right? And I don't know the ins and outs of SAS's executive protection, but when I saw Schwarzkopf, he wasn't surrounded by NCIS guys. He was surrounded by Delta operators.
That was Schwarzkopf. A few years have passed since then.
Petraeus was also surrounded by.
I guarantee you, Petraeus has CID detail. Guarantee it.
I'm sure they were. I'm sure they were both. I'm sure they were both. They probably both worked together. I would say.
We have enough. The Special Missions Unit is not that large, and we have enough jobs for them to do that they're not out protecting every general.
That's exactly right. You're exactly correct.
I got to defend my branch here. So.
I got it. I'm not saying I don't take anything away from them. It's like saying that that one group of shooters is better than another group of shooters. I mean, there's just only so many of the best, right? So you got to have other guys to do it as well.
Let me address something real quick. I agree. This does look copy pasted. I don't think this is an actual photo. I think this is Trump, and then they put him in. The lighting's not correct, but it's the type of job that one does when somebody makes an announcement but doesn't have a photo to go with it.
Well, there is a picture of them like in the Oval Office together.
But you don't know that that's why he's there. I would like it to be true.
No, not at all.
I would like it to be true. But
and I do have to say, Darth, that this was pretty good. Wait a minute. Did Joe just say that trained killers don't always make great peacemakers? Say
weird.
It ain't so.
Say it ain't so.
What, are we talking about Christian here, or are we talking about like what are we talking about? Because I don't know that you said peacemakers, right? Come on, peacekeepers.
Oh, peacekeepers. There you go. But
I don't know. Do they? I don't know. That's a good question.
like I said, I'm just saying, Trump already gave us the Space Force. I'm saying we need the United States Occupational Forces. It needs to be a separate force that's devoted entirely to the art of occupation and how to do that properly, and leave the rest of us killers out of it.
Let me just say no, because we don't need to be occupying anywhere.
Agreed.
We already have that. It's called the Department of Homeland Security and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. Those are your occupiers.
All right, so let's move on. I thought that was interesting and worth discussing. Let's talk about another thing that's worth discussing, is the fact that I think we may be coming to the turn that will allow us to see the light at the end of the tunnel on this Ukraine thing, Joe.
One would hope.
Well, the irony is that just when, because I'll be honest with you, I think Russia is waiting to basically kick Ukraine completely out of Kursk, and then they can come to the table. I think that's always been in the kind of the back of my head. I think I've said that before on this program. And so now that we've seen basically, what was it, Friday? There was the tunnel operation, the gas, or was that Saturday? Was that after the show?
It was after the show. Yeah.
Yeah. So when all that came out, I mean, first of all, that was wild. And essentially the Russians said it was a massive success, and it allowed us to have special operators in the rear, and that turned the tide. And then the Ukrainians are saying, yes, they're all dead. They all died of like inhalation or like gas poisoning. And then we also shot a bunch of, because we were sitting there waiting. We knew they were coming. I mean, so the most Russian and Ukrainian statements ever. The reality is probably somewhere in the middle. And needless to say, the only thing that you need to know at this point is that Ukraine is absolutely on the run in Kursk, and will be leaving that area very shortly. Let's jump into this first story here. With forced withdrawal, Russia takes away Ukraine's Kursk cards. Zelensky had gambled on being able to trade land in Russia for the return of land in Ukraine, and that has failed. Zelensky should have pressed ahead with the peace talks in August 2024 rather than invading Kursk ahead of the talks between President Trump and Putin this weekend. He has no cards left to play. That's exactly right. Literally, the only card he was holding was Kursk, and now he doesn't even have that. According to the New York Times, Ukrainian troops are all but gone from the Russian Kursk region. At the peak of last August offensive, Ukraine held 500 square miles of Russian territory. After fierce fighting, and it holds just a sliver of that today. It's perhaps ironic that President Zelensky's audacious offensive took place in the midst of secret talks in Qatar towards a partial ceasefire. It's no coincidence that Russian offensive in Kursk over the past week took place while Ukraine was agreeing with the U.S. on the notion of a possible ceasefire. The inauguration of President Trump in January made the U.S.-led pressure to end the fighting both inevitable and also, more importantly, predictable. Zelensky had gambled on improving his hand of cards ever since Trump said, "You're not holding any cards." That I've heard that analogy kind of be used when it comes to talking about Ukraine quite a bit. It's very telling how he has kind of turned the narrative on that. improving his hands and cards in future ceasefire talks by being able to trade land in Russia for the return of land in Ukraine. That gamble failed prior to the past week. Based on the Institute of Study for War battle map, Russia had already occupied 3 to 4 times more land in Ukraine than was seized in Kursk. Over the last 11 years, I've witnessed Russian preference for upping the military ante to put themselves in the strongest possible position before striking a deal. What has happened over the past week has been, in many respects, a carbon copy of the tactics Russia used immediately before the agreement of Minsk I and Minsk II peace deals. After separatists in Donetsk and Luhansk seized power following February 2014 ouster of Yanukovych, the Ukrainian army launched the ATO, or the anti-terror operation, to regain control of the Donbass. This led to considerable success on the Ukrainian side and recaptured several large towns, with Ukrainian forces reaching the outskirts of Luhansk and Donetsk. The Russian military stepped into the conflict. Yeah, that's right. Most people don't realize that the Russians actually took place in major ground combat operations on a couple different times during, what was it? I think it was 2015 is when most of that happened. It could have been 15. Anyway.
I have a.
It's Yanukovych, by the way. I couldn't resist.
I have a brief, hilarious bit of breaking news.
Yes.
Leader of the Houthis announces that all U.S. ships, both military and civilian, are banned from passing through the Al-Mandab Strait.
Oh, they said that last night, and it's just as funny as the first time they said it.
Well, the irony will be when the Trump administration turns its sight on that ship, that Iranian ship that we've been talking about for so long.
Agreed.
I mean, Joe, you said earlier that you're not a big fan of them just going whole hog on Iran. But you got to admit, that's one ship that deserves to be at the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah, and I said that earlier. Absolutely. It does. It does.
Well, I'm ready to hear a version of Hunt the Bismarck with Bershad, so it'll be good.
The Ukrainian side didn't push forward in the devolution, and it promised a national dialogue. In late January 2015, Russian-backed Wagner mounted a brutal and ultimately successful encirclement of the town Debaltseve, causing a withdrawal of Ukrainian troops. And that Battle of Debaltseve led to the Second Minsk Agreement. So, I mean, guys, I'm pretty sure that we're looking at what is, like I said, the beginning of the end of the war in Ukraine with Russia's seizure of Kursk. And I'll be honest with you, I think Russia will push into Ukraine from Kursk a little bit as well, just to kind of, wrench their arm around their back in that kind of half Nelson and make them cry uncle.
Yes. But there's also still an ongoing air campaign against Odessa that has to have a point, right? The point is either invasion or driving them to the table.
Yeah, the only issue that I see with a potential invasion in that area, and this could just be my ignorance playing, is that the naval forces that would be needed just aren't there. Joe, I mean, you're a little more expert in that area. What's your kind of take on their landing ability? And
well, I know everyone likes to talk about the fact that they've damaged Russian landing ships. The truth is they've damaged a singular Russian landing ship multiple times. So maybe Russia has to use 4 ships instead of the standard 5 to land a battalion. But the truth of the matter is that they still retain most of their landing ships. They are kind of protected around a corner in the Sea of Azov now, which is entirely Russian controlled. And they're kind of in a spot that's hard to get at. So they retain a lot of good landing ability. They still have about an entire regiment of Marines in Crimea that haven't been committed to anything else other than local defense. So they could very easily be put on shipping and be in Odessa in a matter of hours, right? We're not talking about a 6-day voyage here. from Sevastopol to Odessa, we're talking about, I don't know, 12 hours maybe. And they can make that happen pretty quickly and pretty securely. So it's entirely possible that you see a landing in Odessa, but it's going to take a lot more preparation still.
Yeah, so you've got, so what do you got? The 30th, the Black Sea Fleet, right? That's like the 30th Division, I think. And they've got some submarines there. You've got missile boats. I'm just looking at the list of what they've got here. Coastal defense ships, anti-saboteur squadrons. I don't know what that is. Anti-submarine, minesweepers, anti-saboteurs. I'm just seeing if they have. Oh yeah, here we go. 197th Assault Ship Brigade. I think that's probably what we're talking about here. And so we've got the Novachursk. I think that's the one that they damaged at the pier. It says heavily damaged, partially sunk. And then you've got the Orsk, which is active. And then you've got the Saratov, which was destroyed at Berdansk port. I remember when that happened. And then you've got, let's see, 1, 2, 3. You got essentially 4 more that are completely active and could be used. And you probably, the Novachursk could be repaired and refloated. So that would give them 5, landing ships. So that's a pretty impressive amount of shipping in the area. It's not like it's nothing. And you said that those ships are what, about 2 companies to a battalion is what they could probably embark.
They're usually about a company and a half, but yeah.
Okay, so not a full battalion. That would be more like what you'd have on an amphib, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's not a long haul. It would be a rough haul because that's essentially a lake, and weather conditions aren't the best this time of year. But they could make it.
And then you've
They're
got
flat
others
bottoms, so they're very rough. So
yeah, and then you've got others that are active in other parts. Those are just the ones that are in the Black Sea Fleet. So
yep. Keep in mind that they also have a pretty big amphibious base over by Sochi too, which is where they launched the attack on Georgia from. So
yeah,
biggest south of Sochi. It starts with an N. Novorossiya, maybe. I'm not sure. No, it's I can't think of it. Starts with an
N. Let's go to the Reuters article, Watcher, because this has got a little kind of different take, and it's also, as you could tell, that last article was fairly, I would say, I wouldn't say pro-Russia, but more not pro-Ukraine. This Reuters article, Russian troops battle last Ukrainian forces in Kursk region. I think it's always important to get regime journalists to see, because when they say it, it's absolutely true, because these are the last people in the world that want to report this kind of thing. Russia battled on Sunday to drive the last Ukrainian soldiers from Western Russia after a 7-month incursion by Ukraine that aimed to distract Moscow's forces and gain a bargaining chip and rile President Putin. If you look at this map down here, just kind of scroll down a little further, Watcher. Yeah, that's the one. Now, check this out, Joe. I mean, so when they were going hog wild, they basically had all that in red. But now, March 5th was the area and the kind of the purplish blue, and then that dark blue that's just a small little chunk down there is what they hold on March 16th. So as of now, they may hold 0.
And they probably do. It's almost like we were right when we said you can't launch 5 fingers of invasion into an area and expect them to hold. Weird.
Right. Yeah. Let's see. 2 influential pro-Russian military bloggers said the battlefield gains in Russian forces had allowed Russia to threaten Sumy. It's been a while since we've seen Sumy under threat. But caution, Ukrainian forces have been bolstering defenses there for some time. Putin has accused the Ukrainian troops of carrying out crimes against civilians in Kursk, something Kiev denies. Ukraine says that as many as 11,000 North Korean troops are fighting with Russia in Kursk, although Russia and North Korea have refused to give any details on North Korean troops there. The Ukrainian reports are saying that the North Koreans were absolutely just overrunning them and coming in large wave attacks and things like this that they were unable to stop. It's almost like one or two little drones blowing up like 3 or 4 guys in the middle of the field doesn't make a big difference when you've got like 250 people coming massed against in an offensive operation, Joe.
Yes. I know you were looking for more than that, but
I mean, but it's one of the things that we've kind of focused on the drones as being great against tanks and things like that, but then we've seen them using them against individual soldiers, but
singular soldiers. It's an absolute waste. Yeah,
but it's an absolute waste because it
or even against one thin-skinned vehicle, right? It's like
right.
I could have used that to far better effect, even if it was simply for observation. So rather than going after one singular soldier, maybe I watch that soldier and see him walk to the command post. Now I have a much better and more valid target.
Or I look for that company commander or something like that, and
the machine
go
gun
after the
nest,
command
right?
team. Exactly right.
Yeah.
Anyway, so one of the reasons why you're not seeing a lot of artillery being used is because they're running out of shells. They don't have the ammo to be able to. That's why they're using these drones, is because this is something that's cheap that they can use, and then they throw it away, and then they fly another one. But that drone pilot can only pilot one drone at a time.
Correct.
Now, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you finish it.
I was going to say, now there are high tech kind of AI assisted drone kind of things, like swarming things that could kind of come beyond that, but ultimately that's not what the Ukrainians or even the Russians are doing. They still have fairly low tech drones that are one man, one drone.
Well, and the other thing is that you handle a drone the same pursuit by a drone the same way you handle pursuit by a dog. Anyone know how you do that? Anybody do SEER training?
Turn and fight?
No, you deal with the handler.
Oh,
you go after the handler, and the same thing here, right? So I'm going to find out where the controller is. There are a lot of great tools for that. Even something as simple as a tiny SA Ultra with a directional antenna could pinpoint them. But there are ways to find that operator, and especially if you've got an AI controlled swarm, I can take out that operator and take down 5 or 6 drones.
Well, and Watcher, talk a little bit about what the next generation of drones will bring. I mean, because that'll be, I think that'll be a little harder in the future, but it's still the best technique right now.
No, look, all of these various different battlefield solutions, and Joe's right. That's why a lot of these guys have switched to operating these drones that are running off these single fiber optic spool cables, so that they don't have any signal. And that's also why, again, I mean, as we saw from the early days of the war, they're developing these autonomous modes so that the drone can be sent out to just do its own thing without emitting anything more than just whatever its own sensors are emitting. I mean, you're still going to get, I guess there's some ways you can still detect it. Like it's still going to be using a basic piece of infrared laser to be able to tell how far it is from the ground, and you should be able to see that from basically the horizon line. But I mean, there are other things we can do, but yes, currently the literally just a direction finder loop would allow you to see where the operator's coming from. And then I suppose that's all a matter of being hooked into a mortar team or whoever can, put paint on the target. But yeah, Scott, you're right. In the very near future, I would say under 3 to 5 years, mostly what you're going to have is less a drone operator and more a guy who carries the drones, programs their flights, and then lets them go.
And kind of fire and forget at that point.
Yeah, autonomous drones are the key. And what we've been doing at the scout course is implementing each squad must have a drone detector, a dedicated air guard, who not only is supposed to be looking up, but he also carries a drone detector that's going to alert him to any 2.4 or 5 gigahertz signal. Fiber optic drones, it's not going to detect. You're going to have to detect those visually or auditory. Yep. But I see Wilhelm Corgi mentions it on here. First of all, Corgi, fantastic to see you in the chat. Glad you're on the mend. But he mentions getting the drone detector for brush beater. Sure, it's a $500 investment, but man, is it worth gold in the field.
I want to ask if the vet gave Corgi enough treats. Just want to make sure.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to the next story here. But Joe, no matter how much Ukraine gets out of this, guess who's ready to step in and fuck it up?
No.
It's much closer to home than that.
I forgot. Yes, Big Z.
Are enough for that.
Let's hear what he has to say here.
Okay, let me rewind it.
I can't be for sure that 30 days are enough for that. I think that from our side, it will be enough. But when we have 3 parties, 3 sides, and we'll do everything to have not 3 but 4 sides to be Europe to be included as well, and I would like us to be supported by the partners. It's important for us because, let's be honest, who will fund the support of Ukraine? Who will help in funding of our army?
So basically what he's doing is he's now basically saying, well, I mean, let's not get crazy on this ceasefire. Who's going to bring the money? Where's the money coming from? Because if I'm going to get a taste, we got to get more money.
Yeah, some mobs are going, the bag feels a little light, Johnny. This bag's a little light to me.
He's not interested in peace. He's interested in money. Let's go ahead and listen to what else he says.
And where will Ukraine be in the security guarantees and its economic component of this guarantees? That depends on European Union. The help is Europe. I mean, financial support of the army and the recovery of Ukraine. The whole world wants that, and maybe the whole world will do that, but we rely upon, first and foremost, upon Europe and America. And that is why I think that who we are relying upon, those have to be the subjects of the deal. Europe, the United States, and we, the ones who are at war, Ukraine and Russians.
So he's basically saying that, hey, you guys need to spend more money so that I can get more money in order to even have the ceasefire. And
how many? And I should know this number because it's right in my wheelhouse. How many Ukrainian general officers or government officials have been caught trying to leave Ukraine with just suitcases full of cash?
Yeah.
And why is that money not being used? And how many got out and didn't get caught?
Oh, the key thing, Joe, is getting the money out and hiding it overseas, right?
Yep.
It's like,
and that's what these guys were probably doing. They were headed to a bank,
right? Yeah. And then all you have to do before the war ends or at the end of the war is to get out of the country and say, "Listen, I don't have anything. I'm just leaving. The war's over. I did my part." And because let's be honest, Zelensky is not going to be, he's going to be like persona non grata at some point in the near future in Ukraine. And as are his supporters.
Yes. Hey, speaking of that, did you see that the United States PNG'd an ambassador? The South African ambassador?
The South African ambassador.
Back in the day, that would lead to war, right? I mean, that has not happened in a long time.
Did you see that South Africa came out this morning and was like, Yeah, fair enough. That was really stupid of him. He shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, because he would. Yeah, he basically said Trump was a racist.
They also said in their statement that if an American ambassador had come to South Africa and said like the reverse but similar statements, they also would have expelled him.
Except it would have been true.
Yeah,
because
Wow,
Ramaphosa is racist,
right?
Yeah. Well, there's it would have hit a little closer home, I think. But anyway, all right, hey guys, that's all I've got. Anything else you guys want to talk about?
Yes, I have one bit of funniness before Joe gets to his seriousness. It'll be very brief, I promise. You ever need to spark an instant argument? Drop this picture in a room full of marksmanship instructors and ask them what stoppage type this counts as.
Oh, there's a lot going on there.
This I saw this through the show and I couldn't contain myself.
This is what happens, Hunch. I'm talking to you when you got to put every possible thing on your gun at once. This is what happens.
We have to make up new stoppage types for you.
What is that site?
No, right?
Is that a Romeo?
I don't know. I think it could be what's the Holosun, the really cheap one.
That looks like a Sig Romeo put on a handgun.
By the way, have you guys seen that the Holosuns are showing up in the Russians are using Holosuns?
Wouldn't surprise me. They're Chinese made. I mean, they're using it. And
I don't know that I
for a long time, but it's just suddenly quit working on me.
I don't know that I would want to trust a Holosun in combat, though.
I don't know. Mine functioned just fine until the one day when it didn't, which is probably the day I would need
it. That poor Russian infantry. It worked great until I needed it.
But that's the same thing on all optics, right?
Yeah.
I mean, except for maybe a Trijicon or something like that.
I was just gonna say that's the one thing that's trusty enough that I'd might be okay with not having iron sight backups. I'm sorry, I am that guy.
What I was gonna say was, did anyone see the new drone that Germany is testing? That is the Kazovac drone.
Yeah, I saw that.
I'm sorry, but no, thank you. I'm not trusting my life to a drone and an operator who could get schwacked at any moment.
So, Joe, here's my thoughts on that. If I am so fucked up that I need to be Kazovac, and go for it, just throw me in there. If I make it, I make it. If I don't, I don't. Because I'm probably not making if you don't put me on there.
Well, I mean, I saw it, and the first thing my brain went to was, I mean, it's not that much different than those. What were the little teeny tiny helicopters they were flying in Nam that just had, like, it was literally had enough lifting capacity for a pilot and 2 runner boards on each side?
No, that was like Korean War.
Korea.
That's Korean
there you
War.
go. Yeah. So it reminded me of it reminded me of that, and I was like, oh fuck, man. I guess if I'm on the front lines and it's that bad anyways, my only thought is I'm happy the pilot's not with me, so if we're getting small arms fire, at least he's not going to die that way.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Suppose. Anyway, I did have two quick things as an ending thing. Mm-hmm. Maybe 3. Camp Ponderosa here is going to be hosting a Elvis impersonator concert. July 12th and 13th. The 12th is Elvis's rock music, and the 13th will be Elvis's gospel music. So if anyone's interested in that, you can message me or whatever. We have Shield Field Days, July 25th through the 27th. We have our big training week coming up, May 16th through the 25th, where Matt's going to be teaching 3 classes. I'm going to be teaching 1. Texas Border Rescue is going to come up and give a free chat about what they were doing. And we may even see Kay make an appearance because he's not just down the road. So it'll be a lot of cool, fun stuff like that. If you come to an event like that, you will probably run into Stan and you will probably run into Jim. because they're both local, and I'm going to beat on them until they get back here. No, CWSB, the Elvis stick was not my idea. I'm just telling you what it is. If you are local, I will probably be at the Kalispell Gun Show this weekend, signing books and selling books and doing stuff like that. So feel free to stop on by. Yeah, one more thing. Tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern, Watcher and I are going to have on the show Mark37.com, Sean Patrick Tario, and we're going to be talking about digital privacy. And we will talk about this incident with the Apple AirTags. We will talk about how to make your phone a little more secure, how to make your laptop a little more secure from eavesdropping. And that will be on the Tactical Wisdom channel. And it's going to be kind of neat. So check it out.
That another good opportunity to meet people in real life and build connections and whatnot. Joe, the one thing I like about that event, and then potentially other events that are less preparedness focused, but more just kind of cultural, it's that sometimes it's good just to get together for fun. You don't have to be too serious about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And just having a good time and hanging out. And I know that while we're here, a lot of the locals will just stop by and say, hey, to shake hands with Matt and I. And we're down with that. And it's a good time.
Very good. Watcher, final thoughts?
Just be good. Thank you guys so much for being here. If you haven't done so already, hit that like button and hit the subscribe button. If you're habitually watching us on YouTube, I'm going to make a re-emphasized plea to ensure that you have us on at least one other platform as well as a backup.
Yeah. So to that end, make sure you're following us over on Rumble
or X.
Or X, yeah. Because we stream live to both X and Rumble every day, and there will be. You've probably seen some of the major streamers basically saying that they've had it with YouTube. Now I don't know that we can afford to do that because we get a significant amount of our revenue from the show through YouTube, but ultimately we kind of agree with them when we would love to be able to walk away from YouTube. That being said, we're not ready to do that, but we will show less of the show on Fridays than what we have been doing. Usually what we do is the first hour of the show on Fridays, and then we swap over to Rumble for the second half. We'll probably do the entire show outside of the howdy, how you doings at the beginning. Will all be on Rumble. So make sure you are following over on Rumble. Join the Rumble ghetto. Yes, absolutely. That's the best ghetto. It's the Rumble ghetto. Guys, that's all I've got. If there's nothing else, I would appreciate it if you guys would subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, like these videos because that helps us kind of get a little attention, and share them with your friends. Let people know that you actually talk to in the real world, that you've got a favorite podcast or YouTube show that you watch, and it's Counts on Future Conflict. They may be early risers, so if they are, they'll be able to catch us in the morning. Someday in the future, I hope not to be just an early morning show. Guys, what time is it there for you right now?
9:40.
So 9:40.
So you guys were able to get up an hour later, right? That's
yeah.
The whole.
Yeah.
I hope that helps.
It does. It definitely does.
All right, guys. I appreciate
it'll help real quick. It'll help a lot more when I stop waking up an hour earlier and then going, oh, I don't have to be awake yet, and then go to sleep and then sleep through my alarm. That's when it will help.
There you go. All right, guys. That's all I got. Thank you very much. Chat, you guys were awesome. And so were you guys, Joe and Watcher. We'll see you guys on Wednesday. As always, stay safe.